New stream. Oh, wait a minute.
Wait, how did we just come up?
I don't know. Okay, you guys actually hear us?
Yes, I hear me.
Okay. What the? Yes, we are here and have no freaking clue what's been going on.
Something literally just happened.
Holy moly, guys. We were ready to jump ship. I was already typing an angry email
Yeah,
to support.
exactly. That's exactly what it was. You were sending an angry email, and they were like, whoa,
Wow.
watch out.
My apologies to everybody. This is a monumental moment, I guess, at the same time, but also like, what the F?
Okay, should we start over?
Yeah, we're not going to run the pre-roll there, so we're just going to start over. As you already know us as Shannon and Eric, so we're going to get into Brew and Activate here this morning. Thank God. Hopefully, the rest of this show continues on. So if you see anything weird or whatever, let us know. Keep us in the loop there. But thank you guys again for hanging on. I appreciate everybody there. I know a few people just kind of fall off quick or for whatever reason, but we're working here, so we're going to keep plugging away. Hopefully you're interested in today's topic. But back to what we're all about. So again, Brew and Activate's about real world POTA, my friends. The wins, the slow days, the weird stuff, even when you live stream, man. And it's all the lessons you only learn by doing, for sure. So whether you activate, you hunt, or you're maybe just POTA curious, you are in the right place, hopefully, at least today. All right. So if if this kind of tickles your fancy and you like this kind of conversation, make sure you do us a favor. Hit subscribe, please. Just let the algorithm know that we are live and we are here to stay. We're not going anywhere. And hang out with us for a bit. So let's get into some of our typical housekeeping stuff here this morning. So just as always, if, you can't listen to us live stream for whatever reason, the internet decides to take a break for a little bit of time, or you just can only listen while you're on the road. Well, hey, we got a podcast. You can always check us out. We're on all of your social platforms. Just look up Brew and Activate. And if you always want to help us out, we'd love it. And yes, as the folks said, maybe we need to put a GoFundMe there to pay the bills. The bill is paid up. Trust me. That was not the problem. So if you want to help out, you can always head over and check out all of our awesome merch. Shannon's got some awesome stuff over there in the storefront, and that's over at livefreeandham.com/shop. And as always, please hit the bell, hit the like, hit the subscribe, share this out with folks. Because the show, we usually do this every week, and we love doing it, and it's never a problem. So, unless it's me and, I have internet problems.
Unless Eric's internet goes down, or EV Max doesn't work, or I get stuck in Florida for 2 weeks.
Exactly. So, yeah, or I've shot my internet. I put it out of its misery. We are no longer there. So I've fixed that gremlin. Now more shows up. So eventually this will be smooth running, and we'll look back 10 years from now. We're doing it 10 years. All right. Well, enough of me babbling on. So let's kind of get into some of a few things here. Actually, one thing I wanted to bring up real quick attention, because we always like to let you guys know if you're in the know. I just hit 5K on my channel. So if you're here to obviously, win some prizes, well, that's coming up soon. So make sure you check out the channel for that link. So that's coming soon. We'll be giving away a lot of stuff. As Oprah says, you get a radio, you get a radio. There's plenty of radios to give away. So, I'll come on board, and looking forward to, that little celebration there. But we're going to plug this a lot. Coming up, as you may or may not have heard, we are going to be having a YL party for the LiFePO₄ party. Shannon has been on the trail of guest appearances and magazine articles. She's just almost like she's going to need an entourage to be able to handle all of her meetings and invites and stuff like that. But we'll be having a big giant LiFePO₄ party gathering over on Live Free and Ham. Thank you again, Rabbit Ham, for the $4.99. Appreciate that. We will put that towards the hamster wheel improvements that we need for our power generation in the background there. Shannon, you've obviously, like I said, been on the circuit there. So you got some little news that you want to maybe plug there.
Yeah, so for those of you who are members of the RSGB, that's the Radio Society of Great Britain, if you are a subscriber of Radcom, which is the best ham radio magazine out there, International Women's Day was in Radcom this February 2026 edition. It's on page 12, and it takes up like almost a quarter of the page there, I would say. You can see the little picture right there. I can't zoom in any closer, otherwise my fake background will cut it out. But I actually, before I got my paper edition, because it always takes my paper edition a little longer to get here, there is a RSGB app where you can read Radcom on there. So I did take a screenshot of the digital page. So if anyone wants to see that, I can definitely share that in the Brew and Activate section of the Live Free and Ham Discord. But yeah, very exciting that I wrote to the editor, and even though I was a little late for the deadline for February, they were able to give me a nice big spot there. And I'm going to have, like you said, a bunch of different appearances coming up across the various YouTubes. On February 17th, I'll be on Ham Radio Clubhouse, so be looking for that. That is Tuesday in a couple weeks. On Sunday, the 22nd, I'll be on the European Ham Radio Show talking about International Women's Day Wild POTA Party. And then, of course, we're going to have our own Live Free and Ham on March 6th, right before the Wild POTA Party, which is on March 8th. So definitely be looking for that. And it looks like Shannon just said she saw the Wild POTA Party mentioned in the recent emails from HamYL 2026/02 number 149, the YL.beam. So I get those emails as well. And
Cool.
what else? Yeah, I just heard from Whiskey One Golf Romeo Lima, I think her call sign is in Maine, that her Downeasters YL group were meeting to make plans for the International Women's Day Wild POTA Party. So definitely the YLs are out there in force. We know that Shannon K1LY is a huge fan of the International Women's Day Wild POTA Party. Mike just said he got his Radcom in the mail recently, so he'll look for it.
Cool.
So, yeah, definitely get out there, get your YLs going, and make plans for March 8th.
Yeah,
Hunt,
get
hunt
your
and
YL
activate.
Porta Party shirt too, man. That thing rocks.
Yes,
It's been a hot seller in the store there. So, if you want to represent and you want to have a really freaking cool t-shirt to wear anytime you do POTA, then yeah, swing over there and pick that one up. I'm definitely going to make sure I get one myself and sport it for sure. And I just noticed that I'm like this small little image and
I wasn't gonna say anything. We've also swapped sides. Usually,
Yeah,
I'm
we
on that
have.
side,
Yeah,
you're
well,
on that
I
side.
don't subscribe to that order that Grouch sets where the host has to be always left or stage right. Whatever. I don't know who said that was the internet of things, but we'll leave it. Otherwise, it might break this, and then we're in some serious trouble. Cool. All right. Well, it sounds like you're super busy. I can see you were consulting your paper calendar there. So
Yeah, so to talk about that, so Eric was giving me a hard time before the show started because I don't have a 2026 paper calendar yet. If you could see right here off to my side, I have a calendar that hangs up next to my computer that I look at and I write important dates on, and it still says December 2025. He was laughing at me saying that I was going to forget when I'm supposed to be on Ham Radio Clubhouse. And he was like, "Don't you use your phone as a calendar?" Eric, who are we talking to here? The person that uses a paper log. Do you think I'm going to use a digital calendar when I use a paper log? So then I did just have to click on, the Windows calendar here on my computer to look up the different dates because I was like, okay, when am I doing what shows?
sounds like another T-shirt opportunity in the analog world because, in essence, you are apparently the epitome of analog
Yeah.
altogether. So you come up with something.
I'm just an analog
A
girl living in a digital world.
There you go. Only if I could spell
Because we are
digital.
living in a digital world and I am an analog girl.
Her album will be available on Spotify next week. All right. Well, with that, we're going to go right into our favorite POTA Minute. All right. This is the POTA Minute. One small POTA idea, one real world observation. And we got 60 seconds. So we're just getting you here to get thinking. So there's no right answer here, guys. It's just stuff we started noticing maybe after a few activations or a few hundred hunts. If this has maybe happened to you, let us know in the chat, or if you did it differently, even better, So let's get into today's POTA Minute. We're going to talk about what new activators actually need. So this is kind of an interesting topic for me because I always, we do a lot of mentoring in our club, and I can't tell you how many times I always get the proverbial, like, oh, should I just go out and buy this? Or, what battery should I get and what size and all of this, stuff, or radio gear or upgrades. And I find like a lot of the POTA folks just get so caught up in the weeds and so analysis paralysis that really it's got to be as simple as spreading the message that new activators don't need the latest gear. It's nice if you've got that buy once, cry once kind of mentality, then go for it. But, to get out there, to have fun, to do POTA, I mean, Shannon's shared this several times. Her initial radios were a G90, the 710, those types of radios. So she used what she had and she went out and just got out there and did it. And that's basically what it's about. It's like most of the time you just need to get on the air. You don't need to worry about how fancy or shiny the new radio you have is, or whether or not you're running the latest, coolest key, or you're running the most efficient antenna. Although that is good, but in essence, it doesn't need to be the first thing you do to get out there. Just learn the radio, understand the antenna, learn the environment, learn how to get out there, and learn how to listen. I mean, those things are kind of the key things that I think you can take away from this. And bottom line, as I say here, experience stacks quietly, and it's hard to buy. You can't buy experience, and those who see it know it, and that's why they draft to you and they ask those questions, and they, are like, how do you do this, and what's this? And so, yeah, take that, think about it. Anybody relate to that, I guess? Have anybody had those experiences with those folks? Let us know in the chat. If it is, drop yep or a thumbs up. Let us know if this is a familiar story that you deal with. And so that's
Sorry, we're too busy talking about calendars.
Yeah, I figured so. So, okay, well, when you're done talking about calendars there, and I know there's only two people talking about calendars, it's probably Shannon and Shannon. I don't even have to look up at the chat there. I can tell already by how the responses are. So, yeah, good on that. So, yep, there's the POTA Minute. Chew on that. Let us know. Carry that over to the Discord. The link is pinned up at the top of the chat. So let us know, do you think that's too harsh of a statement, or, hits right in between the eyes there. All right, let's go back to our multi-guest view here.
In terms of, being a new activator, right? So I will just sort of jump in on that subject. It's even people that have been doing ham radio for a long time, I don't know, they get scared or anxiety or something about POTA. Even guys that have been doing field day for a long time. It's look at the Pokies, right? These are guys that have been ham radio operators for, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. I think the one guy, Bud, NY1Z, has been a ham for 70 years. He's been a ham for almost as long as my grandmother has been alive. But, so it's then when I was talking about POTA earlier or late last year, right, kind of towards the end of the summer and the early fall, and they were saying, I think it was mostly Brian, KB1 LPX, who had never done POTA before, and Steven and I, Whiskey 1 Zulu November Delta, had done that POTA together. He was like, well, what is POTA? I want to learn more about it. Let's put together a PokeNet POTA. So then we put together, the PokeNet POTA, and we had our one little meetup, and a bunch of the guys came, and they had never done POTA before. So no matter if you're a new ham or an old ham, there's still an opportunity to get out there and learn about POTA, and it's not as scary as you think, guys.
Nope, it is not. It is very, very entertaining, I have to say, as being a seasoned POTA operator, that when you take new folks out and they see and you get the wide-eyed look of like, oh my gosh, I didn't think it was like whatever they had envisioned in their head. And it's very much, a breath of fresh air, because they were like, oh, this is simple. This is easy. This is fun. Why didn't I do this earlier?
And,
So,
yeah, and you just sent out some gift memberships, and
yep.
we got some of our, longtime people got a gift membership. So Bricker, KY4TRK, KE8UFI, Kathy Thompson, 783, and Bill HRTK0WHW. They all just got gift memberships. So congratulations to
Thank you,
them.
guys. Awesome. Good job. And I will, make sure you check out the channel. We've got some members only stuff that I've been putting together that I'm calling beyond or in between activations. And it's kind of more, it's got a little ham focus, but in essence, it's only for the members. It's something that, I share. I mean, if you're interested, I didn't mention in the show, but I'm very sore from a weekend of 2-day week skiing with my son and brother-in-law up at Jay Peak and whatnot, and hadn't skied for 25 plus years. So you got to hear my insight and see a little bit of some of that stuff and get to see some of the, me in real time on a snowboard. So imagine a 6'5" guy with a plank strapped to his feet and, get a laugh or two. So all good there, but yeah, welcome to the new members, and I'll, reach out to you guys and say hello. All right, so let's get into our topic today with the battery. And, as the title alluded to in 2 or 3, live stream sessions before, this is where we're talking about your battery is lying. So we're going to get into a couple of things. And as always, I always forget to mention this to folks, and I don't have it shared up here, so I'm just going to share it real quick, that we have a great resource now that we're building upon here. And so let's go over to our lovely screen sharing section here. This is a members only jacket. We can definitely work that one. I'll have to workshop that one, Mike. we can be sort of like the Crips or the Bloods. Which ones do you want to be? You let me know.
My gosh, no. I was more thinking you get the green jacket when you win the Masters.
Oh, that's golf. That's boring. Who does golf? So yeah, just as alluding to, we've got our wiki up there. So if you haven't heard about this, or maybe you're new to the show, we've been putting together a great field guide here. And where's my mouse going here? I'm losing control of everything today. Okay, there we go. I'll throw that in the chat here real quick. So if you want to check that out, it's a resource that we've been putting together from all of our Brew and Activate episodes. And it's got a lot of great references. So things that we talk about, it's all there. It's community driven. So in essence, if you want to help participate, you want to add to this stuff, feel free to create yourself a quick login and we'll get you added and you can start contributing. And again, this is community source. So not any one person has control over it. The idea is just to share and grow and be able to create a resource for folks. And what better than a field guide? And this can be anything in the POTA, the realm. So maybe if you've got some general stuff related to, POTA that you want to know, how do you start a POTA meetup in your club, or HF Truth, those types of things. We're kind of building that. So these slides, these things that we kind of go over week to week are all going to be available there, and you can always check that out. And feel free to add to it, because all you guys have a hell of a lot more information in your heads than I do when it comes to POTA and things that you've done. So let's share it. Let's communicate with one another and be able to give everybody an opportunity to learn and grow from POTA and the hobby that we're in. So enough of that. So let's talk about POTA batteries today. If you're here and you might have, you've got some understanding of batteries, and you're that long seasoned ham, and you've got a few in your garage or in your POTA shack that you use. Well, we're going to kind of get into a very high level, but we're going to get into some of the weeds when we talk about conditions and environments that we, insert our batteries to and how those can affect the process. And again, this is along the lines of, if you've been with the show for a little bit, we're starting to build. So I'm starting to kind of introduce some very, elementary topics that you might, kind of glaze over if you've been in the POTA world for a little while. But in essence, the idea is to kind of get you thinking, and definitely, if you're in the chat, share in the chat, because we want to take some of that stuff and add and gather and learn from one another. But we're going to be building off of it. So we are definitely going to get into the weeds on some topics. There are definitely some good truth bits of truth nuggets that I've pulled from previous episodes that I've got in my lists that I'm building for future shows. So fret not. We will definitely be getting into some of the tough topics, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are interested in talking about. And maybe if you've got a good topic that, may have triggered a thought, let me know. Head over to Brew Activate's chat in the Discord there, and let us know there. I'm always keeping a list, and I appreciate all the folks that have contributed topics and suggestions. So we're always adding to that and always kind of growing. So, yeah, keep it coming, guys, and appreciate all that. So let's fire up the slideshow, since we're not doing whiteboards today. We're going to talk POTA batteries. So we're going to talk about actually what matters, I think, is really where we're better going to focus this on. So kind of consider this. If antennas, I would say, are the star of a POTA setup, then batteries, man, they're the unsung hero. You mean you don't have a battery? What do you got? A dead activation, right? And you really have nothing. They're the ones that either can make or break your activation. And so it usually boils down to, it's like, what was this, a great success? Or, you end up coming with a conclusion, you end up packing up early and going, what the heck went wrong? And we've all had it. We've all dealt with various, fluctuations in batteries and functions and, styles and chemistries and all that stuff. But we're just really going to cover the high level today. Again, building blocks, building more towards getting more proficient, getting more excited, and getting into the details of certain areas and aspects of POTA. So, again, no lab theory, not marketing hype. And we're just going to talk about what works in the field today. So whether it's by season, your operating style, and Ted posted this in the Discord. Because the best battery, he posted that every battery should be, we should always be asking for more batteries, is what his post was. But I'm going to say, because your best battery isn't always going to be the biggest one. And so kind of keep that locked in your head. So don't always go think like, I need a 100 amp hour, I need a 320 amp hour. Although they're great, let's talk about why you don't need something that big. Okay, so I have the best batteries. Yes, I know. I can already hear the audio file in the back of my head. There we go. So slide. All right, kicking it on. So we're going to talk POTA batteries, a very quick high level on this. And feel free to jump in, Shannon, if there's a few things in the chat there or you want to add to it. Big picture. What do POTA batteries actually need to do? Simple as this. Actually, I'm one ahead of here. 4 options. Deliver a stable voltage. Always. They have to work 100%. They got to work for our activation, and they got to work out in the field. But with that comes with some trade-offs. So you have to make sure that, the battery sizing, the battery conditions, the battery type, the chemistries, all of that are going to factor into how it's going to deliver that voltage to you and get the current and get the power to the radio so you can actually start to make contacts. You got to handle current spikes. Sometimes that will happen on smaller batteries. Sometimes, your watt rating, your power output ratings, all of those factors can zap a battery fast, can also affect the overall delivery of that battery. And I know still today, if you might be surprised to hear, there are a few activators that I've been out with that still take AGM batteries out there or lead acid batteries. And I'm just like, wow, man, that's a lot of backbreaking work there. But, they're the folks like Shannon. They do have a POTA wagon. So
I was going to say that number 4, be reasonable to carry. Nothing has to be reasonable to carry when you have a POTA wagon. Just
true.
saying. That's why
until
I have my trusty 100 amp hour battery that I bring out on POTA, and I don't have to worry about my battery dying mid activation when
true.
we're, 8 QSOs away from a kilo. Grouch.
Oh, wow. Oh, that was a stab. That was a stab.
Thing out of the way. I'm a sad ham. I said it.
All right, that I had to play. You can get to see that one later. But anyway, so with that, you got to be able to deal with the surviving the environment. And where we are here in the Northeast, we definitely have cold spells. Even you guys in the South are starting to feel some of our colder weather. So, you're going to have to start changing maybe some of your operating styles. Maybe consider, how you protect those batteries a little bit better. But surviving the elements are important to obviously making sure that activation's a success versus a bust. So
You
always kind
might
of
need a
keep that in mind.
battery blanket.
Yes. Yeah. You might have to bring your batteries inside, folks. This is a PSA. Um, and like Shannon said, it's got to be reasonable to carry. Caveat, maybe. I still think it has to be reasonable to carry. I don't want to be plugging. I have a 100 amp hour battery. I got a nice battery box in it. It only comes out like to be the star of the show. It doesn't usually go out on activations. It gets used as a workhorse. But that's it. It's not like I'm hauling it everywhere I go, but that's just my style and that's how I operate. And everybody to their own, take all of this information with a reasonable understanding that, you need to do your operating style and your environment and how you like to operate. All right. Slide. Talking about battery types. So I'm going to break this down simple and easy. You got LiFePO₄s, you got AGMs, and then you got lithium ion, which is kind of also power stations. Great things about each of the categories, pros and cons, very quickly. Your LiFePO₄s, we all use them. It's the POTA standard. Anybody you talk to, get a LiFePO₄ battery. You need, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter the watt hours. Just get a LiFePO₄, you'll be happy with it. Get a charger, you're good, and that pretty much suffices it for most people. But the benefits that you may or may not know about a LiFePO₄ battery is lightweight and portable. It's definitely stable voltage, which is important when it comes to radios. If you can operate your radio and get every last volt, every last bit of current and amps out of that battery to operate, is going to make the difference to when you might be, in the thick of a pile up and trying to make as many contacts, or struggling to make 10 or 11 to be able to get an activation. How does that stack up against, say, something like an AGM? Well, we'll talk about that and some of the drawbacks in there. But it is very prone on the cold, on the con side. It's prone to cold. It hates the cold. The BMSs are designed to shut off and cut off with low temperature settings. Things you have to consider is batteries, warmth, that type of stuff. So like I said, don't leave your batteries out in the cold. Try to keep them in nice warm conditions, and they will work to your benefit. But cold will zap them if you've got them laying out on a park bench and you're in the middle of a winter activation. The last two pieces are just kind of manufacturer recommended. It's like, you don't charge them when they're freezing or below freezing. And actually, a lot of the BMSs will shut it off so you can't charge it. So that's kind of a good fault protection, because you could really kill a battery, both the performance and, cause some swelling. And then you never want to just leave your battery straight out in the cold. So kind of consider that. Anything you want to throw on that one, Shannon, or just keep plugging through this one? This one's kind of simple and easy stuff.
Yeah, no, I started out with the little sealed lead acid batteries. I think I have like 2 9 amp hour. They're either like 9 amp hour, 12 amp hour. Those were the ones that I started with the G90. Again, because they were cheap, right? And especially when I got started in ham radio, which was only in 2020, so it was only 6 years ago, right? Like, not as long ago as a lot of other people. The LiFePO batteries were a lot more expensive, and for a 20-watt radio, you don't need as much power, amp hour power. So I went with the cheaper option, which was the smaller sealed lead acid batteries. And, those were fine for, what I was using them for. But yeah, they are super heavy for their size, especially. and we have better technology now. The prices on the LiFePO batteries have come down, so much. I've never had any problem with Amazon batteries. Maybe some people have. I know some people like swear by the bioenos.
Mm.
Um, but so you kind of use what you have and what you can get at the time, and then yeah, you can kind of build on your kit, which is sort of the story of ham radio, right?
Yeah, 100%. That's the nice part with this hobby is that you will always your upgrade path is always on the positive side. You're always going to be a little bit better or a little more improved or a little different, and because you learn more, and that's the nice part with the hobbies. You're learning as you're kind of playing and operating in the in the moment. It's not like you have to get to a certain level before you really understand how the balance of operating and radio and power and all that stuff kind of factor in. So 100%. Yeah, definitely good points there. Another big option that I find a lot of is the AGM stuff or sealed lead acid. AGM tends to be a little bit better. A lot of our vehicles today, modern vehicles, have AGM batteries in it. If you've got a good friend that works in an automotive dealership, they tend to try to get rid of all of their AGM batteries. They still have some really good life in them, good for ham radio. So if you want to get a really good battery that handles cold really well, if you're in a very cold climate a lot, AGM can be one of those to solve that factor for you. It's a little heavier than, say, a LiFePO₄, but, still, again, along
A lot
Shannon's lines.
heavier.
Yeah, yeah. It's very much one of those things, but the benefits to an AGM over, say, a sealed lead acid is that your power delivery is a little bit more consistent. It'll get to like 11.5 volts and then cut you off, whereas like a LiFePO₄ will gradually like slow you down, and it won't be like an abrupt cutoff. But the benefit is the detriment to that, I should say, is that a lot of those AGMs and sealed lead acids, they only get about 50% of their total capacity. So even though you have a 100 amp hour lead acid or an AGM, you're not going to get the 100 amp hours. You're probably going to get maybe 50 amp hours. And so, is the trade-off of weight to power consumption okay in your mind? Maybe not, maybe so, but again, your conditions can dictate a lot of that. So keep those in mind when you're thinking about that. And then the last option is the lithium ion, which is kind of the RC style batteries as well as power stations. Power stations are great. People always have them as backups. I have the typical battery, USB kind of charging styles that are 40,000 milliamp hour kind of styles. You can definitely use those in the QRP kind of scenarios. They obviously have some shortcomings in terms of the functionality and the overall performance of the application, not the radio drawing too much power or whatever. So kind of keep in mind that you're not going to be able to get an accurate 1-for-1. So where you're looking at a LiFePO or an AGM, you can kind of calculate pretty quickly how much you're going to get out of the battery and in your operating style. But say all-in-one EcoFlow or whatever may not always be able to deliver exactly what you're looking for over time. So things like that you might want to just consider depending in along your operating style. Bottom line, POTA rule of thumb is best battery is the one that finishes the activation. That's bottom line.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, like you kind of touch on, the operating style. It depends too, like what kind of radio are you running? Because if you're running QRP, then, yeah, you don't need this 100 amp hour battery. It's just going to be complete overkill for, maybe like your 10 watt, KX2 or KX3, whatever, or even like my little Zbit X, right? That takes two, what are they called?
650s.
Yeah, that takes
Yep.
two 18650 batteries that are rechargeable. So, that's like you don't even have to bring a separate battery for that. And
Yep.
you could probably even set up some kind of solar system that could, trickle charge your batteries to, keep your activation going over time if you don't have access to power, like if you're out camping or off grid or whatever activities you might be doing.
Yep. Yeah, very much so. So, and then just this little chart down here at the bottom, I kind of want to bring your attention: size versus power. Here's the thing that I find a lot of ham radio operators don't think about when they're getting into battery chemistries and thinking about that. They're always looking at what the battery says on the side, which is the amp hours. not the watt hours, because in essence, when it comes to performance and longevity and stuff like that, we need to be thinking more watt hours. And so along Shannon's lines there, if you're running QRP, you've got a ZBEDX, or you've got FX4CR, 18650s will work well, 9 amp hour batteries will work well. You want to be thinking 100 to 150 watt hours, and there are calculators on all of the web that you can find to be able to convert the amp hours to watt hours. It's a pretty relatively simple, easy calculation, but these are the numbers you kind of want to think about when you're coming to battery size, and then that'll help you translate, actual watt hours to amp hours, so you can find the right size batteries. But then you're going to jump up. You're running 100 watts. You're for most people doing a POTA activation. That's kind of where I fit in, 200 to 300 watt hours. So for me, that's like a 20 amp hour battery, Bioenno or Lifetime, or whatever. And the size form factor is not terribly huge. It's basically a small little, like I don't know, a little smaller than, say, a box of Dunkin' Donuts Munchkins from, that kind of perspective. Not as light as a Dunkin' Donuts Munchkins, but, we'll use that as an analogy. And then if you want to get into bigger, like where Shannon's always running a 100 amp hour battery, that's kind of your 400 watt hour plus, type battery configuration. All right. Going on here. So we're going to talk now conditions. Anything in the chat that we wanted to touch on before we get into conditions here? I did see a few folks talking about Bioenno sales. Yeah, guys, just let you know, Bioenno's kind of the standard battery. It was the first on the market, got to be very popular. People love them. I still have them in my collection, love them. But you don't have to. You might be more interested in, say, other manufacturers that are out there, and there's a bunch. All YouTubers do reviews on batteries. K-Murder's a good one. TO. A few bunch of, they all give you kind of different examples of other manufacturers that are available out there, and they do a very good job about testing those batteries efficiently. Check into those, because there may be more benefit. I actually had one of my friends, Todd, W1STJ, he originally had a Bioenno battery, and if you do a lot of traveling, the case on the Bioenno can get wrecked and tear, and TSA doesn't like that stuff, and especially if you tape it, they definitely don't like it. So, maybe look into batteries with a hard shell plastic case. That type of stuff might be more beneficial for, the abuse and things of that nature. But yeah, don't be afraid to try a new manufacturer out there, because most of the battery chemistries are pretty consistent. All right, so let's talk about winter, since we're in the thick of it here in the New England area. Cold affects, again, all batteries, like we said, but lithium is one of them that gets affected more. Battery rules when it comes to winter. LiFePO₄ always loses capacity when it gets to freezing. So consider the fact that, if you're operating and you leave your equipment in the truck and you're in your car and you leave it in the back, your battery is going to shut down itself to protect itself. So make sure you bring those inside, make sure you keep them warm. Maybe consider a heating blanket. I know a few folks that actually carry around electric blankets that plug into your cigarette lighter. That may be beneficial if you're operating from in the vehicle. You can wrap your battery in a blanket, get the temperature back up above freezing, and then your battery, BMS will kick back in. But that is a big concern, is obviously the fact that your batteries are in a lockdown state. Obviously, it's going to affect your activation. So plan a little bit more on that, and consider those types of operating conditions that you're in. When you charge lithium cells that are below 32, you can definitely do some damage. So keep that in mind. The nice part about the manufacturers that are out there today, and pretty much all of them have it, the BMS has a shutoff, or current cutoff, so it will not take a charge if it's below freezing, which basically saves you from getting into some serious trouble, and to destroying, your investment as a battery itself. And then in the winter, we all don't think about this, but winter conditions, electronics like cold. I mean, ergo, look at all of our data centers. They love to be able to keep everything cool. Well, when you get into really cool temperatures, radios have to work a little harder. Radios have to draw more current. When that voltage drops off the battery, which is causing a little bit more resistance, which is basically causing the battery to drain faster. So keeping all of those components all in operating, confined temperature, ratings, that will set you in a better place for a longer operation in colder weather. Other things, insulate them. We already talked about that. Soft coolers, foam towels, electric blankets. I have in my truck, I did a video on it if you want to check the channel out. I bought one of those foam wraparound heaters that has an element sensor in it, so it regulates the temperature of the battery. From keeping it from dropping below a certain freezing temperature and keeping, and shutting off when it heats above, a certain temperature. So it manages itself and does a decent job, although my experience with it is that they have a high amp draw. So if you're using the battery itself to keep it warm, then you're going to drain your battery while trying to keep it warm and maintaining the temperature. So it's that kind of the fish eating, the fish cycle. So keep that in mind when you're using something like that, and try to keep that off the main source if you want to obviously use that as your primary, battery source. And then the one we mentioned before, AGM. If you're in a lot of active cold conditions, maybe you're in Alaska, AGM is probably way better than thinking about lithium. just for the fact. I mean, you deal with the heaviness, but most of the time, you're going to get a more benefit out of it in the long run for it. Anything there we need to glaze over? Or... Yeah, I see a couple.
Yeah, we were just talking about, flying with your batteries. And, I believe at 12 volts, you can fly with like 2 9-amp-hour batteries, but obviously that probably depends on the airline. I think they have to be in your carry-on. I actually just booked my tickets to go to England this summer, just booked that yesterday. So I'm going to bring my G90, but I don't think I'm going to bring any batteries. I'll be meeting up with ham radio operators over there anyway, so they're going to have batteries, but if I need to, I'm going to probably order, a battery from Amazon and have it delivered when I'm there, because it's so convenient now, right? And not that expensive. And then, just pass it on to another ham, before I go back home. Don't even bother bringing it with me.
Wow, you are such a giver. I would fight the TSA first. And funny you mentioned that, because we over at Live Free and Ham had done a lot of, we've actually done quite a few episodes where we talk about Todd's TSA experiences and all the stuff that he's gone through and learned. So if you want to glean some information from there, how to work the TSA system, Todd will show you, and we've had some interesting conversations around that. So cool. All right, so let's get into next one here. So let's talk about our favorite season around here, which occurs pretty much, 3 weeks out of the year, and then we're back into the third winter or extreme hot summers, I think. I can't remember what the scale is there, but we're talking spring, fall here. These are kind of shared events, but temps are always stable in those months. You get basically your full rated capacity on the battery. Charging's easy. So basically, bottom line is just skip over winter, stay hibernated as a bear, don't go out and do anything. And when spring and fall roll around, then go out and activate, play with your batteries, and everybody will be happy. But the only thing I guess you can glean out of that is weight savings is going to be a big thing, because if you're like me, you may enjoy operating from your vehicle, but now you can go to a park bench. And now if you have to go to a farther park bench, an AGM is a little heavier to carry. Now I understand the wagon and you can pull it there, fine. But if you like to hike in and you want to do some of that stuff, then yeah, smaller batteries are going to be more beneficial for you in the long run. And so always consider weight savings. But this is kind of the peak season for lithium batteries, like I mentioned. It can definitely be a great balance and most of my fun times. And up here in New England, our state bird doesn't attack you during those time frames, so I think you're in good sorts. All right. Anything you want to throw in there, Shannon? You good?
No, I'm good. Looks like Brandon had a question. Can you guys discuss C-factor rating for batteries?
Yes, we can. Not today. And here's why. Because you can get into a lot of discussion, but actually it is on one of my deep dive sessions when we get into batteries and cells and matching and all that stuff. So if you're maybe so inclined you want to build your own packs, we're going to talk about some of that stuff. So I'll make a note to make sure that that's in my notes section when we get into that other additional deep dive on batteries there, Chris. So appreciate that.
No, that was Brandon.
Sorry, Brandon.
So Brandon, I think, is down in my chat, and he is actually the president of Cape Ann Amateur Radio Association. So hi, Brandon.
Sweet. Wow. Very cool. All right. Well, welcome. Thanks for hanging out. All right. So the spring fall, we already dove into that one. So moving ahead, summer POTA. This one, although a lot like spring fall, you got to deal with the heat. Batteries and radios do not like heat. They don't like to be in the sun. They don't like to be overheated. So don't leave your batteries in hot vehicles. You can definitely cause cell swelling. Depending on the temperatures. It's a lot like don't leave your dogs and kids in the car, locked cars with windows up. Don't do the same thing to your batteries. And sticking them in the trunk is no different. Even though it might be dark, it's still very hot temperatures. So try to remember to pull your batteries out and keep them in good working order there. And when you're operating, try to find shade. I know it's tough sometimes in certain parks. I know when I operate out in the certain beach areas, it's almost impossible to find shade. There are awesome tools out there you can pick up off of Amazon that allow you to set up small little mini tents so you can slide your radio in and your battery and it's shielded. And it gives you a nice little shade for your laptop when when I set up and have my laptop, I can shade my laptop and see the screen. Shannon, the only problem she has to worry about is the pen leaking, because it's overheating from, being in the sun too much. But then she goes to wooden pencil. So
No, a propelling pencil. Get it
Yes.
right.
Okay, my mistake.
But yeah, and it's not just summer, guys, because let's think back. If Grouch is still in the chat, we were solidly in fall, right? September, October, doing that Russell Abbott State Park, which I don't think he's released a video about that yet. Hint, hint.
I think he did.
Oh,
He
did he? Oh, I'll
Yeah,
have
he
to
did.
check.
It was a song video.
Was it? I know
Mhm.
he did a song video on the one for Robert Frost. I didn't see a song video for
I think
Russell
he
Abbott.
did. I'm most
So
positive. I thought I saw the rest of it.
I'll have to look back. So anyway,
false.
we're going off on a tangent now. But so
do.
I mean, it was fall and we were sitting in the sun and it was very hot. And I will say that Grouch is a good Boy Scout. He was prepared. He had an umbrella that he used to shade the radio and the batteries because, I mean, most of our batteries are black. The radios are black. Black attracts light, attracts heat. So, yeah, those things heat up faster than you would think that they would. And they don't dissipate their heat very quickly. So, having an umbrella or something to shade the batteries and try to keep it as cool as possible is definitely an essential piece of kit when you're operating, not just in summer, but anytime, it's kind of warmer, you're in the sun, direct sunlight. And it's not good for us, right? Like we as
No.
hams, we should also be seeking shade and staying hydrated and
Yes, 100% there. And, comfort is definitely one of those things, especially in high heat conditions and heat waves and stuff like that. So the one thing here I thought it was kind of interesting, and I had to do a little bit more deeper dive, and it's going to be more along the lines of where Brandon was saying about, getting into cell matching and all of that, is avoid fully charging your batteries day before. And I was like, well, what's the deal? And there's a lot to it for the reasoning why. And we're definitely going to get into more of that. But ultimately, letting your batteries, and so I have adopted the process where I'll use one or two batteries that I know I'm going to take out in the field in a couple of days, and I'll basically just run a small little either a battery conditioner on it or whatever. Not for a long time. It's just the idea is just to kind of get the cells cycling and doing their things. But there is definitely some concerns that you have to be wary of when it comes to high heat temperatures and overcharging your battery too as well. And very interesting stuff. And then the last one is if you take a power station out there with you, like either the battery banks or an Echo Flow or whatever, again, heat will kill that stuff. The fans will spin up high, which will then suck more power off the battery, and you're not optimizing it enough for efficiency. The other thing too is that they also have thermal circuits in it too. So if they're extremely hot and they're starting to sense that there's a temperature rise very quickly, it'll shut itself off, and at that point it'll cut it off, and at that point you're kind of stuck. You have to figure out how to cool it down, and get it to back to operating condition and so consider some of that stuff. Bottom line is heat shortens lifespan, not runtime. So just know that. Okay. Plowing through size versus power here. And so we're almost kind of wrapping this things up. We got a couple more here. think in terms of batteries. Always, everyone looks at size versus power. You know, we live in the McDonald's, Burger King world. Got to do everything biggie size. Got to do all this. Same thing, kind of mentality of people with batteries. Again, back to thinking less amp hours and more watt hours. And the idea is that amp hours will tell you the capacity at one specific voltage. So this is that formula that I was telling you about a little bit. Watt hours will always equal volts times the amp hours. And so you take that quick formula and you can calculate that with any battery that you might be looking at and get a rough idea of how long your watt hour operating time is. And that may be okay, because that number you at least now have in your head to say, when I start shopping for a battery or I need to upgrade, you know, I can run this watt hour batteries out for QRP. I can run 100 amp hours for this type of radio. And then that's where you kind of start to do the brain calculations of like, okay, what's the draw on the radio when it's in idle? What's the draw on transmit? All of that plays into that whole watt hours formula.
And that is all in your radio manual too. You know, I learned
What's
that the draw.
The manual.
It will tell you.
Oh,
you're saying, okay.
Who reads a manual?
Listen, okay, when I got my mobile radios and I was deciding how I was going to put them in the car, and, you know, people were saying, oh, just use, you know, a cigarette lighter adapter or whatever. But then, you know, when you read about, you know, what those are designed to handle in terms of, you know, how many, you know, amps it draws on transmit, it's above what those cigarette lighter adapters are made to handle, really. So, you know, I read the manual and saw, okay, this is what it's going to do. So, you know, and I made sure when I went and had my radios installed, because I did have them professionally installed by this place. It used to be in Middleton, but they moved up 114 to the Peabody Danvers area, and they were awesome. I love them. I used them twice, and if I need to do anything else with the radios in the car, I'll use them again. I can't remember. Auto Sound was the name of the place. They've been around forever, and so, you know, I made sure to show them, okay, this is what, you know, it's telling me for the radio, because they're not a ham radio place. They're really a place that installs
stereos.
Car stereos, but they're familiar with all that stuff. So as long as you give them, you know, the information, they'll make sure that they, you know, make up the right wiring harnesses and use the right gauge wires and everything.
Yep,
so it's
100%.
good to be, you know, we should be familiar with that stuff on our radios, especially if we don't want to just be, you know, appliance operators.
Yeah, very much so. That's a good point there. Yeah, so why would this stuff really matter? And I think we already touched upon some of, you know, radios obviously aren't pulling steady current. They are built by us, and they, you know, electrons and all that stuff can vary between cells and configuration, and whether you baby your batteries or abuse them, or, you know, somewhere in between, all of that can affect, you know, the performance of every cell. And big things is power draw changes with every mode you're in. So keep that in mind. So you might be running FT8, you're going to have a higher duty cycle. You might be running CW, lower duty cycle. You know, all of that varies depending on what you're doing. And I don't say that for the purposes to cause analysis and paralysis for you, so you just don't do anything at all. Be okay. Ask a few people around. Feel free to email Shannon and I. Hit us up on, you know, via email, whatever. Let us know. You know, we're happy to kind of share some of our experiences with that. Definitely head over to the Discord. You know, get involved in there, because there are smarter people there that know all of this stuff too as well, and can always help you pick of the right few things to get you going, so you just don't sit there and do nothing, because that's the worst. You know, in my mind, you know, you're missing out on some really good stuff. We already talked about some of the receive draws, stuff like that. Shannon basically said it, hit a nail on the head. Understand your manuals, understand your radios, and those will go a long, long way. All right, we got a question there I saw. Have you ever retired a LiFePO battery? Any cost involved to recycle them? Yes. So actually, that's a good question there, Chris. I would say there is sometimes a cost involved, depending on how your local towns deal with battery recycling and stuff like that. I would double check. There's a couple of places I know. If you have like individual cells and like things like that, you can usually go to like a Staples or an Office Max or stuff like that. They usually have battery drop-offs there for free. If you know or you look up on the internet or the interwebs, look for battery recyclers or electronics recyclers. Sometimes they'll take batteries for pretty cheap fees. And all you have to do is just bring the batteries to them, as long as there's no like major slashes in the batteries, or they're not leaking or anything like that and causing any hazmat kind of scenarios. And sometimes even local town dumps have recycling centers. So checking into that, there might be a fee associated with that for them to take the battery. But that's how I usually dispose of mine. I have a lot of lithium style batteries or AGMs for like my generators and things of that nature that I have to cycle out, and those usually go right to the town recycling place, and I pay like $10 or something like that to drop them off. So not terribly that bad, but it's a safe way to get those batteries recycled. And just remember, your battery is not infinite. The manufacturer states how many cycle times are on there, and you look at that number and go, I'll never hit that. But you might get close, and as you start to see or sense, your battery's performance is going to dwindle a bit. So kind of watch that, keep an eye on that, because an underperforming battery or a few cells can cause the rest of the batch to kind of work harder, which then kills your battery faster, and you cause this downward spiral very fast. So better to detect it sooner than later, as they say.
Yeah, one thing I actually do either want to like make or get is I would love to have, some kind of inline voltage meter, because on the G90, on the main screen, it shows you what voltage you're getting from the battery right on the radio. And I think on the Yaesu 891, I think it shows it when you first turn it on, but then it goes away. I don't think on the 710 or the DX10, I don't think it ever shows you the voltage that you're getting. So, I would love to be able to see that, because then you can kind of see like when your battery is actually, sort of depleting. Otherwise, you might not have a good idea of what's going on until, you go to transmit and all of a sudden your radio is dead. Not speaking from experience there at all. And then, I'm
Ask me
actually,
how I know.
I'm actually having something that is a little funky going on with my 100 amp hour battery. And I don't know if it's a problem with the battery or a problem with the charger, but I've had the battery on the charger. It's probably an undersized charger for what the battery actually needs, because it is just sort of inexpensive from Amazon. But it's like never showing that it's full, and it was on the charger for like hours, so it should have been full.
Yep.
But the battery still seems to be working fine. So I'm not sure if there's some problem with, the battery has circuitry in it that's supposed to talk to the circuitry in the charger to say when it's full. So I don't know if there's some kind of mismatch going on with the circuitry there. I will fully admit that I was a very bad girl, and I did probably leave the battery in a car that was hotter than it should have been before I realized, like, hey, I should probably take this battery out of the car and bring it in the house, because it was, we had a rather hot summer this year, and it's always about 30 degrees hotter in the car than it is outside. So
for sure. Now you were referring to something like that, the PowerWorks watt meters. Is that what you're
yeah,
thinking of?
yeah,
Yeah, these are
it
great.
doesn't have to be like crazy or fancy or expensive.
These are pretty. Now, consider the fact that I'll let you in on a secret. The watt meters, most of them that are out there, and I've got 3 or 4 of them, whether it's PowerWorks or other, knockoff Chinese brands, they are a good indicator. They aren't accurate. They aren't a great measuring tool for accuracy, but they'll give you a flow between battery and radio and give you both like your amp outs, your watt hour, your watts, and what the battery voltage is, across the thing. Now it could be off and it varies from time to time, but don't look at it as a tried and true, accurate 100% number. Use it as a way to kind of guide your activation. I usually have mine propped up on the battery right next to the radio, so I can kind of see it at a glance, and let me know if I'm 4 hours deep in the activation and I'm like okay, the battery watt level is showing me just like 12.1 volts instead of 13.8 or whatever, or 14.4. And how much watts I'm pulling when it's on receive. Those things are good indicators and just little like mental notes to say, okay, I'm going to have to widen the activation up, or I'm going to have to swap batteries out or whatever. And they're pretty cheap insurance. I have one in pretty much every one of my bags and love them. All right, so we've got a question there I saw from Coder Jim, and I think Grouch hit him up there. But yeah, you can definitely give building yourself a battery box is a good, kind of test, and it helps you understand helps you understand electricity and routing and battery stacking and stuff like that. There is definitely a formula to running things in parallel versus series when you add additional batteries in terms of what you get for more voltage or capacity, that type of stuff. And then how that all plays into, charging controllers and things of that nature. You have to factor in those things. So like a lot of times you'll get a charger that comes with your 100 amp hour battery. That's probably sufficient enough to charge a 100 amp hour battery in 8 to 10 hours. But it's not putting enough amps out to be able to charge two batteries in parallel at a shorter amount of time. So you might have to get a charger that does maybe, say, 30 or 40 amps or even more. Well, I wouldn't suggest more, but I would say 40 amps is probably good. It'll cut down your charge time and help, get your batteries topped back off quicker so you can get back out in the field. But yeah, building a battery box, there's a ton out there. I got a video on my channel if you want to check that out. I kind of went through a lot of all of my life lessons and parts that I put together. So feel free to check that out and ask questions as always. And then so wrapping this up a little bit here, we're going to talk choosing the best battery. So this isn't like the biggest or the newest or the most expensive, or we're not talking, say, manufacturers here. We definitely can get into some of that down the road. But it's really, again, back to the original, kind of statement I made. It's the one that finished your activation without any drama.
It's the typical ham radio answer of it depends.
Yes. Which is not why I put that here. So I tried to stay as clear of that. Bottom line is how long you activate. Got to know that. I mean, you're not going to know that initially when you're first doing it. So just get yourself a battery that you can afford and then build from there. What power levels, you will probably know that depending on what radio you have in your possession. And like Shannon says, consult your manuals. All of that stuff will be there. And you can do a quick calculation using both the time, how long you think you're going to operate, the battery size, and your radio draw both on idle and transmit. And you come up with a number and figure out, boom, that's what you're going to start with. Definitely what season, so you might be in good shapes if you're just getting into POTA now to use the wintertime to kind of plan and accumulate the parts you need to be able to test at home. We did an episode on doing, the U.S. test. So go back to check that out in the Brew Activate playlist I have on my channel. That was a great one. If if you're new to POTA, you can do a POTA test from your home. You don't have to go out in the field to try stuff like that. And you can test all your gear, figure out what works, try it all out, and really operate the activation like it's an activation. So check that out for sure. How far I'm going to carry it. That's I don't know. That's depending on whether you're a POTA person that you like to hike in, whether you like to do picnic bench activations, whether you want to, go in and experience nature. You might want to bring a wagon with you, or you might be in a more, kind of rural park, and you might need something more like a wagon because you have to pull it from the parking lot to wherever you're going to activate. So think about those things. Think about the builds. Funny story is I was talking to a ham in our club who wanted to get into POTA, and he was looking at the, Craftsman or Harbor Freight stack locking boxes and all that. He's like, that's what I want to take out in the field. I'm like, that's a lot, man. And those things aren't really like, built for being able to drag through mud and dirt and grass and all that stuff. But, hey, if you want to start there, that might be a good place to go. And then you can build on there and decide whether or not pulling that everywhere you go is something you want to do. All right, let me see. We already talked about general recommendations. If you're going to do QRP, again, that's that 100 to 150 watt hours. Again, always put yourself into the watt hours mindset. Don't think, amp hours. It'll save you a long run in terms of how you and what you buy for batteries. If you're going to buy an 891 out of the box and you're, going to sort of run it at 100 watts all the time, get a little bit bigger battery that's commensurate to, what you're running for power. And then like we talked about, winter and long ops, consider bigger batteries, consider batteries that can handle, that are more workhorse type batteries for those longer activations, of 4 hours plus or whatever you're attempting to do. Maybe you're doing a Rove, and a Rove is going to require a larger batteries for sure. So all of those are good elements to kind of consider. So my bottom line is, again, it's the one that finishes your activation without drama. But I'm curious, those in the chat, hey, what battery are you guys running? Maybe if we saw a few fly by, I might have missed it, so my apologies. But, are you running to less than a 20 amp hour battery? You're running a couple of 9 amp hours. Maybe you're like Shannon, you're hauling a 100 amp hour around. Let us know. And what is your most seasonal trouble spot? Do you have more problems in summer, winter, spring, or fall? I'm always curious. Shannon shared her woes there. What's ever happened to you surprise mid-activation with your battery? Because I know that can be painful.
I have to say, Brandon does bring up a good point. Pro tip: instead of buying or building your own, borrow and use your friend's battery.
Oh yeah, dude,
So,
good idea.
that is a great reason why doing a group POTA is such a great idea, right? Because let's say that one person forgets something, then the other person probably has it. Or, you get the opportunity to maybe try out a different radio that you're not used to. You have an opportunity to try a different operating style that you're not used to. Maybe you always do QRO, but your friend only does QRP, and you guys, can kind of swap. One person tries QRP, one person tries QRO, and you both kind of get to learn and grow and enjoy the hobby.
So yeah, Grouch was saying he's got a 12 amp hour battery go-to. Yeah, same here. 20 amp hour seems to be more of my bigger one that I'm carrying, but that 100 amp hour, I wish you had that when you did that certain activation, but maybe
and it was in my car, and if I had thought for 1 minute that those batteries were going to die again, I would have brought that 100 amp hour battery out of my car. But, Grouch assured me that he charged his batteries, and, I believed him. So, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, can't get fooled again.
Very true.
But I will say, we like to joke about, my 100 amp hour battery that I carry around. I do have a 20 amp hour battery as well. So I have batteries in all shapes and sizes. And yes, Grouch, you did make it work. We did get the activation. We got the kilo. We may have had to, wire a few batteries together. We may have had to pull out the car jump starter battery pack. We were about this close to just hooking the radio up to your truck battery, I think. So, all joking aside, we used Hamgenuity. It made for laughs and great memories. So, that's what
it's about.
That is what it's all about.
Exactly.
We're adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
We're ham radio operators.
Got to remember, original ham radio folks, nerds, were all about emergency preparedness and being ready for the eventual end, of everything. And those are kind of what we're practicing for, but at the same time, we're doing it because we just love playing in the hobby. And it just makes us, that much better as operators and people proficient in many facets of electronics and things of that nature. But it looks like... Coder Jim said he's running a 30 amp hour battery there and hadn't had any issues. Awesome. Good to hear. Definitely keep that going and, treat that battery well, and it will treat you well for sure. Yep. Joe KI5 WDOT. Yep. 20 amp hour Jackery. Oh, cool. Okay. So you were kind of in that third bucket there with the Jackery. Yeah, definitely good to have. They are very versatile and keeps you, a lot of your devices, especially if you get laptops and stuff like that, charged and working. He runs, 100 amp hour Redodo. And yeah, that's another good battery. I sold my 100 amp hour Redodo to Grouch to upgrade to a heated version for, my big behemoth battery, solar battery, whatever, generator, as they call them. Sorry, I'm trying to use the proper words there. And I haven't used it yet, but it's definitely heating. So very cool. All right. Well, any last bit of advice you want to throw out there, Shannon? Or we pretty much covered most of it, I think, today, outside of all of our mishaps.
Yeah, if you've stayed with us this whole time, then thank you so much for putting up with the weirdness that happened in the beginning of the stream. Not really sure what happened there. Grouch claims he's the one that fixed it by, starting up a test stream in the Weekend Warriors. So I don't know. I think Weekend Warriors is streaming tonight, right? Or was it last Friday? I don't know. I get all confused with this every other Friday. Can't you just do it every Friday like us normal streamers? And
Hey,
then
Grouch, next Friday. Okay, I was gonna say if
Oh.
it's next Friday, then throw a link in the chat. But all right, there you go. Head over to his channel.
Yep. Make sure to check out November 1 Oscar Grouch with his Weekend Warriors podcast every other Friday. So sounds like it's next Friday. So we'll be looking forward.
Hamcation special. Wow. Interesting. All right. Well, Grouch, do me a favor, throw your link in the chat there since you're a mod anyway, so you can do it. Check out Grouch there if you're into shenanigans and hamcation conversations and everything in between.
Skydiving with radios.
Yep. Military life and, just stuff that isn't. I don't know how to quite classify his channel. It's just Grouch. There you go. All good. All right. Well, let's put a bow on this for today. So maybe you found, at least the latter half of the show useful, entertaining. Well, the first half was definitely entertaining for sure. Help us out, subscribe, share with folks. I appreciate everybody who's been sharing the channel and getting the word out there. Like I said, I just hit 5,000 subs, so looking forward to doing that live stream very soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And we're going to be talking more about the POTA party and sharing more of that, because I'm sure if you haven't paid attention and you missed it in the very beginning, Shannon will obviously be on the Ham Radio Clubhouse and many other places. So, keep an eye out for that. That's always going to be fun. I'm going to enjoy sitting in the chat and, being her while she's online and go a little crazy with that. So very cool. Thanks again for hanging out with us today on Brew Activate. Remember, whether you're activating, you're hunting, the goal is always simple. Have fun, stay safe, keep exploring. Until next time, keep your radios on, the PTT down, and POTA on.
Wingardium Leviosa.